Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Kristen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. If this is your first time listening to the Collide Kids podcast, we like to have fun around here, so I'm glad you're checking it out. Be sure to stick around to the end where we have our kids only segment. That's where kids get to be on the podcast. Well, today we're going to talk about siblings. Do you have a brother or sister? Raise your hand if you are the oldest child in your family. That's me. I have my hand raised. How about the middle child? Raise your hand if you're in the middle. Okay, what about the youngest? Raise your hand if you are the youngest child in your family. Or maybe you're an only child and you don't have any siblings. Well, like I said, I'm the oldest in my family. I have a brother and a sister who are younger than me, and we are really close and really good friends now. But we are all very different in how we see things, how we relate to our parents and our family and each other, and how we do things. A few months ago, I learned about this guy on social media making hilarious parenting videos on Instagram and TikTok about his 4 kids and highlighting how the birth order plays out in his family. His name is Therrien. He's also a creative director at his church, and he has a podcast called The Funny Thing About Parenting. This was so much fun to have him on the show today to talk about families and siblings, and I think you are really going to enjoy this funny conversation with my new friend, Therrien. Well, TJ, thank you so much for being on the Collide Kids podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a blast. I've listened to several of your episodes and I think it's great what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. And well, first of all, let's get started and let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a dad of 4 kids and we live in Minnesota. And I do several things. I love sports and love hanging with my family. I have 3 little girls out of the 4 kids. 3 of them are girls. So we do a lot of tea parties, which is something new, something new I'm getting used to. But I really have two jobs. I work at a church actually as the creative director. So I get to really be a part of the creative things and tell stories within our church. But the other side of what I do is I make funny videos. Well, I try to be funny about what it's like parenting or what it's like being a kid. And it's a lot of fun making these videos that other parents and kids seem to enjoy somewhat.
Yes, I definitely do. I send them to my siblings all the time. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. I love to always start my show by asking my guests to share a joke. So do you have something fun you want to share with us?
Yeah, I have a list of dad jokes that I won't. Yes. I'm not going to put you through that though. Okay. I have so many good ones, but it relates to my videos though. And the funny thing about kids, the way that I look at it is the birth order. How they're how your oldest is and how your middle child and if you have a third, what your youngest is like, or even if you have more. But one of my videos, the joke is mom's making lunch for each of the kids, and mom makes a sandwich, slides the plate to the oldest, and the oldest very politely says, "Thanks, Mom," takes a bite, washes it down with some water, takes another bite, just nice and clean, right?
Sure.
And then mom says, "Here you go, middle child, here's your lunch." Middle child looks at the sandwich, opens it up and just stuffs it in their face. It's gone in 20 seconds. Says, "I want another one." And then the youngest child, "Here you go," slides the plate. The youngest child looks at it, looks back at mom and says, "I said the red plate," slides it back. "I'm not going to eat that, Mom. It's all about the color plate." This is what happens in my family. If I give my youngest the wrong color anything, I need to go back, and I do.
Yeah. And no matter what, even if you ask them what they want, it's still wrong. Like if they give you the answer, it's still not what they wanted, right?
Exactly. I can't get it right. So that's what I'm learning as a parent. I just need to, I don't know what I'm learning actually. The youngest is teaching me how to be a parent, I guess.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit because your videos are so funny, and they're funny because they're true. Like, so I'm the oldest of my siblings. Okay, so I have a brother who's the middle child, and then my sister's the youngest. And I mean, I keep sending them like, this is so Lauren, or this is so Taylor, like this is exactly how they were, or it was so me. Like it really does apply. So tell us about how you kind of came up with this idea of making videos about siblings.
That's really funny that you are the oldest, and of course you're proud of it, right?
Of course.
The
Yeah.
way we make you look. But yeah, it's really funny because we have 4 kids, but our youngest was born a few years after. So for a while we had 3, and the birth order really played out like perfectly. Our oldest just loves things that make sense, loves math, just things that are cut and dry, kind of logical. And then our middle child is such a sweetheart, and we love her so much. And she's kind of all over the place, very adventurous, colorful personality, and there's a lot there. And I'm a middle child too, so I relate. I relate to that.
Okay.
But then our youngest, I joke that she's either going to grow up to be the president of the United States, or she's going to get in some serious trouble because she's in control. But what I love about her is she has conviction, and she really believes in herself. And I love that about her. So the videos were kind of born out of that, sort of, pretending to be each of those kids in these different scenarios. Like, what is each kid like eating lunch, or what is each kid like when they're watching TV or getting into the car? And it's funny how when I started making these videos, I started hearing pretty quickly from other parents and even kids, hey, that's me. That's totally our family.
Yeah.
And now after, a few months, I think I've made 50 or so different birth order videos that are just a lot of fun to hear other parents relate.
Yeah. And I love that you had some like kids write some videos for you. Like they've created content for you and you've played it out.
Yeah. And that is my favorite thing. So every day I get messages, hey, my kid has an idea for you, or I have an idea for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I screenshot it, and I have, I have all of these, which is so cool. So as much as possible, rather than me coming up with the idea, I love it when somebody else, especially a kid, says, hey, I'm an oldest child and here's an idea for you, or I'm a youngest.
Mm-hmm.
That makes my day. And it's really fun when they get to see their idea played out in a video.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
That's awesome. I loved, so one of my favorite videos that you did is the one of them making, like packing their lunch. So the oldest is like got the bento box with the like perfectly cut sandwiches and everything's perfectly placed. And then the middle child's like debating how many cookie bags to put in their bag, and they're like, just do both. Like, why not? And then the middle child says, I'm not packing a lunch. And they slide McDonald's Happy Meal.
Yeah, the youngest, yes.
Yes. And I sent that to my siblings because my sister got Happy Meals all the time. She's going to listen to this, I'm sure, and she's going to yell at the audio, but she for sure always got to eat out and do all kinds of crazy stuff that we're like, why didn't you ever take me out or bring Happy Meals to my lunch? Like it never happened that way.
It's so funny. My wife and I were talking about this, and on one hand, that this is kind of like the sometimes the youngest, and not always by any means, we're all picky, right? But sometimes the youngest knows what he or she wants, but on the other side of it, maybe it's because the parents are just tired. They have 3 kids. By the time you get to the third, it's like, you know what? Let's do the easiest thing we can do. Here's a Happy Meal for you.
Right.
So that's really funny though. That plays out, in your family too.
And I think with the oldest, they're the dress rehearsal for the real things coming, like
Yes,
they're like
yes.
helping prepare the parents. That's how I feel about my kids. I have 2 kids, and I feel like my oldest was the dress rehearsal before we had the next child, who is a lot more energy. And so we really got to know how to parent and how to do things. But the oldest gets all the
Yes.
rules, right?
Exactly. So you probably with your first, you laid out all of the things that you were supposed
Yes.
to do. You
Right.
you bought all the products, you did, if there was just a hint of the blue line in the diaper, you're going to change it right away.
Right.
And you did everything right and meticulous. And then it's funny, after you have maybe 2 kids or more, you start to see first time parents and you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I used to care that much about every little thing. And of course we all care deeply, but
Sure.
yeah, we found ourselves loosening up in different ways. Just in terms of things we've started to learn what really matters, what we are really passionate about, and things that we're willing to let go. And then the youngest benefits from all of those things that we're willing to let go,
Absolutely.
right?
Or on the other end, I'll tell another story about my sister. She claims that mom and dad took us to the doctor all the time. Like if we had a slight cough or ache and pain, we went to the doctor. And my sister actually broke her wrist, and my parents didn't take her to the doctor for a few days. And they finally went and got it because she complained and found out she broke it. So she's never let anyone live it down.
Oh man. Yeah. I'm not sure our youngest will ever go to the dentist. I'm not sure we'll ever make it. She's on her own.
That's right. So
Yeah.
tell me about your siblings. Like how does this play out? Was it something that you saw just with your kids, or was it something you saw growing up? We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
I think I saw it more with our kids growing up. And this is funny because I hear this from parents when I put out a video. I think most people would say, we totally relate. You nailed it. That's my family. And then maybe 1 out of 10 would say, my family's backwards. What's wrong with my family? And I think that's pretty normal. My family growing up, I was a middle child of 3. I had an older sister and a younger brother. And my younger brother, he was more like the oldest child. He was the responsible one. He was pretty laid back. He was the one that just wanted to make mom and dad happy. Mom and dad didn't have to make him happy. And it might have been because me as the middle, I must have been a middle youngest combination because, and he must have said, you know what, TJ's got this thing covered. I'm going to take it easy and just be the responsible one. So yeah, sometimes it's backwards. It was in our family, but yeah, our kids are definitely playing into traditional birth order pretty well.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the differences between the oldest and the middle and the youngest. Like, what are the things that you saw in them, or how would you describe each of them?
Yeah. So our oldest, he's a boy. He's our son. He's 8 years old. And 2 nights ago, instead of him reading a book at bedtime, or either me or my wife reading him a book at bedtime or telling him a story, he asked if we could do math equations in bed. So that's his thing. Every night, it's either my wife or I, we're trying to come up with new equations and story problems. And it's stressful. I'm like, that's one way to put a kid to sleep. Like that would put me to sleep, but so that's him. He is very logical, analytical. You don't have to really really explain to him like what he needs to do. He's figuring it out.
Yeah.
I would say our middle, and again, we have 4, but I would say our second is more of our middle child. And she is very sweet. Her personality changes depending on the environment she's in quite a bit.
Okay.
Quite a bit. So she is kind of like a chameleon. So she loves to adapt to, at school, she's probably more reserved, more shy. And then at home, she's all over the map with friends. So I think maybe that's even common with some middle children. I think it was when I was a kid too. But yeah, she's not a clean she's not a clean person. We'll just put it that way. She's okay with messes. And then our third, which we'll call our youngest for now, because our fourth is only 1. We're still trying to figure out what we have in our hands with her. But our third, I think she just wants to be the one to decide things. So we might say something, something that we're okay with her saying yes or no to, like, hey, do you want to play with these toys? She will probably say no because it wasn't her idea. So that's what we're learning with her. We have to like trick her, maybe. Well, things have to be her idea.
Like reverse psychology or something like that.
Exactly. And of course, things like brush your teeth, she doesn't get to choose. So that's more of a battle. But she definitely likes to be in control. So that's where I think I might be her boss, or she might be my boss someday. We'll see.
Okay.
Maybe I'll work for her. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So thinking about the oldest person in general, so not necessarily your kids, but just the oldest, what do you think is their superpower? Like, what are they so good at?
Yeah, that is a great question.
I want you to tell me, because I'm oldest, so I want to know what's my superpower.
What is your superpower? Yeah. And of course, as I say this, I'm going to generalize it to most oldest, but of course there are plenty of exceptions to this. So don't let me box you in, but
okay.
I would say the oldest is loyal. I'm going to say loyal.
That's a good one.
Really trustworthy, loyal. There's so many things that I could say, but I would say loyal would be at the top of the list.
I like that. I like knowing that I'm loyal. What do you think about the middle child? What's the middle child's superpower?
I would say the middle child's superpower is you can count on them to be the life of the party. Mm-hmm. Which it's not just for fun. We all need that person in the room to bring out the best in others. And I think, of course, everybody has the ability to do that, but I think a middle child can really do that well with their personality.
Yes, I agree with that. I see that with my brother and with my son. Let's see. What about the youngest? What is their superpower? Aside from being the boss, what is their superpower?
Yes. I think my big thing with the youngest is their ability to stand up for what they believe in. And again, it's not limited to the youngest, but this is what I see out of a lot of youngest children. Even I talk to parents who say, I am the youngest and now I'm an adult. And maybe it's because they had to fight a little bit as a kid to get, to really get there. But to stand up for what they believe in, I think is their superpower. But you could say so many good things about each of them,
yeah,
right?
For sure. I love those though. That's good. So I talked to my brother and sister. I was like, all right, give me some stories. Remind me of like things that happened. So there was a home video. We took a lot of home videos growing up. And there's one where it's my sister's birthday party and she is opening presents and I am like standing over her, helping her. And by helping her, I mean, I'm doing it for her. I'm opening the presents for her, handing it to her, showing her, and she gets a book or something. And so I wrestle the book out of her hands and start reading it to her and all her little friends, because that's what she wants, I'm sure. And then you pan over and my brother has pulled his arms into his shirt out of his sleeves and he's like flapping around the room. We're like, this is the perfect picture of all of our personalities.
It is. Yeah, it is. Even the way kids open their presents.
Yeah.
I think the oldest is just really careful and
we don't want to mess it up. Right.
The middle just tears into it. the youngest just makes sure that nobody else touches his or her present. It's mine.
Yes, I
It's
love
mine.
that.
Yeah.
So I
That's
feel
funny.
like I like what you said earlier about like it's not just about like there might be some personality things or some things that different birth order people can relate to in your videos, but everyone's unique. Like everyone's different. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I'm really passionate about how God has gifted every single kid, especially, but every person's been given a truly unique set of personalities and gifts and even a pathway, and a purpose. So it is funny. I love making these videos, and it's so fun when other families relate to them. But what I don't want is for kids, especially, to feel like they are supposed to be one way, um, because the truth is God has gifted each person uniquely.
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter what your birth order is, or it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, uh, God has made you in a very specific and special way. And I really hope that each kid knows that, and each parent helps embrace and help the kids kind of find what that is in their life.
absolutely. I think it's dangerous sometimes when we try to tell siblings, act like your brother, or act like someone else, like they need to be themselves. They need to be behaved, but they also need to be themselves. So how can they work through that? Like if that's something they struggle with.
It's easy to slip into that. It definitely, as a parent, it's easy to slip into, this child's listening, why can't you? Or do you see how? And I can't pretend to be the expert in how to do that perfectly by any means, but I do think it's important to adapt as a parent, and to really try to understand what your kids are feeling, and
Hmm.
unique to them. What even motivates them in different ways. I think each person is motivated uniquely, and not trying to compare, or don't put kids in a position to make themselves feel bad about who they are, because this other, it's okay if your brother or sister is a little bit better than you at math, for instance. You are gifted in different areas that other kids are not, and it's not about comparing who's better, who's worse,
Right.
but it's just knowing that you've been given a different set of natural talents, and then you can learn things just as easily as well. But yeah, like I said, I don't know what I would say is like, here's what you should do, but I
Yeah.
do think it's important to really try to embrace how God has created each person uniquely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to recognize that God has put each of us in the specific family that we're in and in the birth order that we're in, for a reason. So if we recognize that God's placed us in our families and he's given us our families are a blessing. It's a gift from God. So I think that's a huge part of, you know, remembering who you are and how God created you. And that's part of it is he's given you this awesome family to live with.
Yeah, and you guys might drive each other crazy at times, and it's okay. There will be fights. There will be, oh, who broke my, so and so, and or there's going to be nights where, it's really hard between the hours of, I would say, 7 to 8:30 in our house. So you've already eaten dinner, and it's like, all right, now it's time to start getting ready for bed. If we can all, as parents and kids, survive that window of time,
Yeah.
we're going to make it, because that's a hard window of time. It's a very stressful window of time. So to any kids listening, I do your parents a favor and just try to try to listen really well in there
Yeah.
for us. You might get an extra treat the next day if you do. Who knows? But yeah, so it's never going to be perfect, and you don't believe if other families look perfect. They're not. None of us are perfect, but
Right.
um, but yeah, just all of us doing our best to be respectful and be the best family we can be together.
That's right. And I think a lot of times when parents call things out in their kids or say things about their kids, it's because they recognize it in themselves. Like I used to do the exact same thing when I was growing up, so I know what you're doing. Like we can recognize those things because we've been there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like when I go down under my middle child's bed and I find candy wrappers and fruit snack wrappers. Like, how long have these been here? And then my first thought is, this was me. That's what I did as a kid. So I need to just simmer down a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you said you have another job, right? You also work at a church. Tell us about that job.
Yeah. So I am a creative director at a church, which means I work with people who do videos and graphic design, and we do our best to tell stories of how God is changing people's lives for the people in our church, but even for people outside of our church. So it's an awesome way to well, really for me, I think God has given me the ability within creativity, just finding interesting ways to connect with people, both people who are inside of a church, but also maybe people who aren't, and maybe they're looking for something that they don't know what they're looking for. And we can do that through humor. We can do that through really powerful stories of how God's changing people's lives. But yeah, it's really fun to kind of blend these two worlds that I live in, because I've been on staff at this church for almost 13 years and it's my home. I absolutely love it. And now as I'm creating my own videos, I see the two worlds blending quite a bit. Where
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's, the videos that I do, I don't explicitly come out and make them extremely faith-based necessarily. But what is cool is I think families pick up on it, because when they're able to say, my kids enjoy watching these videos with me, thanks for keeping the content clean, or thanks for, that's really good to hear, because I do want to spread more love than hate, of course. So
sure.
It's really, really cool to see those two worlds blend.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really neat that you kind of get to do something similar in your regular job, and then you also get to do something at home. So tell us, what has been your favorite video, or what's been the most fun thing that you've created so far?
Oh, well, the birth order videos are a ton of fun, but I would say I do another series of videos that are fun for me, and it's two brothers who are talking to each other, and I play the part of both of those brothers. And I think one of my favorite ones was when the brothers were both in bed at bedtime, and they were saying that they could hear something. What was that? And it was mom and dad watching TV downstairs. And one brother said, "That's not fair." And the other brother says, "I know. Should we go down there?" And then they both came up with reasons to go down there. So they said, "I'm going to be scared. You be hungry. Let's go." It's that conversation that I feel like my daughters have on a nightly basis.
Yeah. Like, let's do it. Let's get.
Yeah. But one other thing has been really cool. We already talked about this, but my absolute favorite thing is to make videos that other kids send me the ideas for. That's just a blast. So I hope that keeps happening.
Yeah, I think that's so fun. And I love that they're connecting with it enough that they recognize what you're doing, and they recognize that if they're the middle child or the oldest, that they do the similar thing. So that's cool that they get to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So I am studying this. I'm not trying to sound spiritual right now, but I'm studying the book of Genesis right now. And as I was reading the story of Joseph, I couldn't help but think about your videos and the birth order. So that's my idea. I'm coming up with some Bible themed.
Ooh, I like this. This is a whole new series.
There you go.
Biblical birth order.
Yes, because
I love it.
Once I started thinking about it, I was like, there's probably a lot of Bible characters that could fit into some of these videos. For example, when Joseph is with his brothers. So Joseph is obviously the youngest, and he's showing off his beautiful coat of many colors. And the Bible says that, all the brothers ganged up on him. They threw him in a pit, and they were talking about how they wanted to basically murder their brother. And Reuben steps in and is like, guys, no, we got to be responsible. We've got to take care of things. And so Reuben, who is the oldest, started stepping up and like taking responsibility for everyone's actions.
This
So
makes so much sense.
I know, right? So it's like your videos could turn into Bible studies if you wanted them to.
Well, and maybe the middle child was very jealous of that beautiful dream coat, that multicolored, like from a fashion standpoint, the middle child's like, that's me, that's mine.
Yes.
But yeah.
Can you think
That's
of
good.
some other Bible characters that might fit into
Oh,
the birth order video series?
that is fascinating. This is really, really funny to think about. Here's one, and I haven't done any videos on what it's like to be an only child, but I get messages all the time saying, will you please do an only child video? I wonder if Paul was an only child. He
Mm,
he kind of, he was a mix of responsible but rebellious, and
yes.
he came around and really took control, led, I mean, think it's just so crazy to think about what he led us to through his writings and through his conviction. And so I
And
don't know, that could be,
maybe the thorn in his side, he said he had a thorn in his side, was that he didn't have siblings.
yes,
He had no
maybe
one to
that was
blame things
it.
on.
He couldn't play with, he couldn't play
Right.
with people, any friends. He was writing. That's all what he was doing. That's all. That's what he did for fun. He wrote letters, and now here we are, thankful that we have those letters.
Right, right.
Thank you, only child.
That's right.
That's a really funny idea. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll see if I can come up with some more ideas, but I was just thinking that would be a fun video series to talk about all these different Bible characters.
Yeah, I'm gonna read the Bible through that lens now.
Okay, you have to now.
For sure.
But
That's
that's also
good.
what happens when you are on Instagram or social media, and then you go into your Bible study. Is it whatever you picked up, I guess, on social media starts to filter what you're reading in the Bible. So
Yeah, that sounds like a slippery slope, but I like it. I like it.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna get into the New Testament this afternoon. We'll see what happens.
Okay, good luck. I think that'd be awesome. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for doing this today. I'd always like to end my show by asking my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share with us today?
Yeah, I have so many fond memories. We took a lot of videos as a kid
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid, and it's fun to watch those back. There was one that I thought I was about to get in some serious trouble because me and my buddies were in our backyard and we had a sandbox, and we thought this would be fun to take our garden hose, running water, and stuff it down. Because when you put a hose, running water, in a sandbox, you can continue to push the hose deeper and deeper into the ground because it paves a way. And
Oh.
I was probably 6 years old, but this garden hose got stuck, and it might have been 6 or 7 feet deep, and all the sand had dried and folded over it. And me and all my friends were tugging at this thing, and we could not get the garden hose out. My mom had the camera out, the over the shoulder big camcorder,
Yes.
and she told us, your dad is going to be home in 15 minutes. You guys better get this garden hose out. And we were so frightened because we thought we would be in some deep trouble. And my dad finally got home. He came out, and it's funny because at the time I thought I was in trouble, but looking back, watching the video, my mom and dad were playing a big old prank on us, telling us that we were going to get in trouble, and you could hear them giggling in the background on the video. And by the end of the night, me and all my friends had dug a 6 feet hole with a few shovels, and we got that garden hose out.
Wow.
So it's just fun to look back at these goofy, a big memory that I have that could be, if you think about it, that was probably really stressful as a parent, but they chose to see the funny side of it. And I
Yeah.
think that's what makes it a great memory.
I love that. That's so funny. And that's I think when I look back at our old videos, they were so long. Like our parents would just film for an hour and we would be
Oh
like,
yeah.
and we're still opening presents on Christmas morning. We're like, our videos we shoot of our kids are so much quicker. It's like a minute. We're like, that's a long video. Let's trim that down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember as a kid having to fast forward through a lot of my sister's dance recitals because it was like a 2 hour, but that's what, hey, now we
Yeah,
have that to look back on, which is awesome.
that's true. Yeah, it's so good. Well, thank you again. This is so much fun. And I love the videos you're creating. I love how you're doing this. And I think it's so good to find things on social media and on the internet that are fun to watch and just something to lighten your mood if you're in a bad place. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for what you're doing. I love that you're creating a space where parents and kids can kind of learn together, and I
Yeah.
bet it sparks all sort of conversation. So yeah, I appreciate you asking me on. This was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you. Wasn't that so fun? I so enjoyed meeting him and learning about his family and how he makes videos. I love when he was talking about how we should be careful not to box someone in, meaning that we shouldn't just assume someone's personality or abilities based on something like when you were born, because God has made each one of us in a very unique and special way. So even though it might be true for some, it doesn't mean it's true for everyone. And I think that's a good message. And I love that part of TJ's job in his job at church and also what he does on social media is finding interesting ways to connect with people through humor, through stories, through videos. Those are all different ways that we can connect with someone and use our gifts. One of my favorite things about his videos is that some of them are written by kids. So, hey, if you have an idea for a video, maybe something from your family or something that happens with your siblings, I bet TJ would love to hear about it. So I encourage you to reach out to him and send him your video ideas. I'm sure he would love that. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is really one of my favorite parts of the show. This is where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. So I'm really excited to introduce you to TJ's 5-year-old daughter, Macy.
Luke 2:10-11. I bring you good news for all the people in town of Bethlehem.
That was a great verse. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that TJ's kids get to be on the show. Well, if you would like to be on the podcast, I would love to hear your favorite Bible verse, or maybe an encouraging quote that you like, or a great joke you want to share, or maybe you might have a question for me or for one of my guests. I'm always looking for kids to send in their stuff. It is not too late and it's easy to do. Just have a grown-up help you go to my podcast website. It's thecollidekidspodcast.wordpress.com. If you need more information, you can find all of this on my social media pages as well. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family. Let them know what you like about it and what your favorite episode is. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using. And give us a rating and a review on your podcast app. That really does help other people find out about the show so they can listen too. Well, I hope you've had fun today talking about families and learning more about birth order. And I hope you never forget the truth that God made you unique and special. Well, in case no one has told you today, let me be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.